you are seeing some Roman ruins built probably during the 2nd century after Christ. You have to imagine that this building was used for a very important thing. This was the market of the food in this town, when the city was a very, very large city of the Roman Empire. You have to imagine that you will have a lot of shops around this square. Between the shops, can you see the ruins made out with bricks? Well, now you will see just the ground floor of the old Roman shops, and you will find a few remains of the first floor, but above the ground floor there was 2 more floors. And between the shops and the main square, can you see the columns that you will find around over there? Well, there was a porch between, as I said, the shops and the main square. In the middle of the square there was that round-shaped building called the tolos, that were useful for meeting, for buy and sell foods. You have to imagine that in the opening area in the middle of the square were possible to sell the fresh food, meat, fish, eggs, vegetables. They stay at the open air. Just in a case of rain, they can find a shelter in the round-shaped building. Instead, all the dry goodies like cereals, legumes, wheat, corn, they could be bought and sold in the smallest shops here around. You have to imagine that cleaning this building was important. If you look at this corner at my right, you will see the small channel for streaming the water, used every day to clean the square and put all the dark waters in the coastline that during the Roman age was very close. Last 2 things to say. Can you see the 3 columns over there? That columns back during the Roman age were 4. You can find the remains of the 4th columns down below over there. Each column is made out from 1 just block of marbles, and each column is tall 14 meters, not so small. You have to imagine that the columns were the facade of a little Roman temple, a sacellum. In fact, if you see at the back of the columns, you will see an apse, this round-shaped wall. You have to imagine that from the ground rises something like a dome, and at the end of the dome there was that triangle-shaped decoration, a fronton, just above the columns. You will wonder and say, Pasquale, it's no sense why you should have a small temple in a building like a market. For the Romans, it was important to pray in every situation of life, even before to buy some food. And to be honest, every time the Romans make a deal, one day I will give you better. In 2 months I will pay you for all this core that I'm building right now. Well, if they make a deal, they used to swear in the temples before the statue of the gods. That was important for the deal. So having some statue and a temple in the market was important for them. During the 18th century, when the archaeologists arrived here, the landscape was totally different. In this place there was a vineyard, and no ruins was possible to see. They were covered by the ground and dirt. Only the top of the 3 columns came out from the ground. In fact, the vineyard was called the vineyard of the 3 columns. During the year 1742, the kings of Naples, the Bourbon family, started to excavate this building. They start from the columns, they found a lot of ruins, but they don't take care for the Roman ruins. That was not the things that was important for them. Can you see the water in the middle of the square? It's a thermal spring. The Bourbons, they were looking for that. In fact, they built in this corner a little spa that now is no more extant. They use the building and the ruins just for using the water for cleaning their skin, heal the disease and so forth. Look, the water is full of iron, so it's so red. You have to imagine that the Bourbon builds a very beautiful gate on the opposite side down there, so they can arrive in their spa walking through the ruins. It was very, very picturesque and beautiful. but it's very important for us why we have water here, because we use these ruins with the locals, the people of Pozzuoli, like a scan to understand if the level of the ground is rising or is lowering down. Why? Because the water that we can find there, if we find a lot of water, at this moment are very few, this means that the city is lowering down, so it's like the water spring can send more water in the on the bottom of the buildings. If, like in this case, we find just a veil of water, this means that the city is rising. So we use this for understanding. But there is one more thing to say. I put a lot of pictures of these ruins through the centuries. You have to imagine that 50 years ago the coastline was exactly here. People, the fishermen, came here roaming with boats to catch octopus, fishes and so forth. And you have to imagine that these ruins take a little very important secrets. Can you see at the tallest column down there? Look at the middle of the columns. Do you find something strange? You will find some signs. Can you find that signs and images, that holes over there? Can you see it? On the lower part of the column. Well, that are very important for the history of the geology. That marks were lived by a kind of little animals that is a mollusk, is a mussels. It's called the lithophaga. These little animals used to cut the rock and live exactly where you will find the tides level. This means when you will find that holes, means that the rock was on the surface of the sea level. And hard to believe, but during the Roman age, this building was dry, close to the coastline, but obviously no water of the sea can arrive there. But at the end of the Roman times, when the level of the ground started to lowering down, a lot of water came here. And so reading the holes there is useful to understand the level of the sea through the centuries.